in my personal opinion, Scotto lost that last map.
I do believe that round was won by Christian's aim. I don't care where you go.
Yeah.
If you're shaking like that, you're not going to hit your target.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to KWA Insight. I'm Sapo from SYG Airsoft. With me today is none other than Figgy Smalls, representing LTD Airsoft. So basically, me and Figgy are here to provide insight for the games that we're watching today. And what we're doing is we're trying to break down, give you analysis. We want to find the details that the naked eye can't see, or maybe some of the inexperienced players or some of the audience might not be able to spot.
We're going to be overviewing and breaking down the first couple rounds of Fight Night. We'll be going back and forth, giving our own personal insight and our authority to speak on these matters based off of the years and decades of experience that we have.
I mean, it's experience, right? Like, you and I have been playing this game for a decade plus. You even longer. I'm coming from a paintball background even before that. So I think like we've been around, we've seen the game change over the course of this decade. And like, I think, many people consider you and guys like me to be masters of the art. We've been around, we've adapted to how the game's changed, whether it's playing 5v5s, smaller formats like 4v4, jungle ball. And in this case, this is more of a 1v1 setting. For me, I've always back when we used to play all the time, I always thought Figgy's probably one of the guys who's like one of the best 1v1 players. That's why I hold you in that regard, where I do think you have the authority to speak on games like this.
And throwing that over to you, I think you have the mindset and the kind of knowledge to break down this footage that we're about to go through better than anyone else. You coming from both your paintball and airsoft side, it's going to give kind of that different kind of view to the viewers here and let them know, what they could have done better, our personal opinion on it, and maybe what other viewers who plan to do other future fight nights may want to take into consideration going forward.
But yeah, I think overall, the knowledge that we share between us can really help the community and up their game.
This is Cam versus Alex. I don't know who Alex is. Cam kind of likes to play aggressive. So I guess my first takeaway is right away, Cam's already assuming how he's going to play. Say he's going to play slow, he's going to play low. He's got that in the back of his head already.
The mentality of it.
Rather than just going through this, this first round saying, I'm going to see how he plays and go from there.
Just to feel it out.
Yeah, he ended up losing that first round because he was caught off guard. Alex played quick, got around him, was able to get him out. So just going back to that mentality of, being open and not assuming and how the other person's going to play.
Right. Just almost study your opponent, just in the first round, especially, you want to see if you are going to assume, then see if it plays out the way you think, don't base all your reactions upon that, right?
Yeah.
So, mentality and a mindset in a game is very important. And if you go into it with a certain level of confidence, you have to maintain that. As soon as you lose focus, that's when your plan starts to fall apart. What I did notice from Alex is that, in contrast to Cam, is that the way he was holding his gun, there's some kind of nervous energy there. I'm not sure where that's coming from, whether that's from nerves or just a little bit of a lack of confidence, just hesitation even. Because Cam was steady, That's why he was able to capitalize in that small section of the game. Alex kind of came out a little shaky, kind of overexposed himself. Cam was ready for him, calm, steady, and just took him out. And that's sometimes all it is. It's just being able to handle the pressure and maintain focus on the objective, whether round by round even, because that resets. As soon as the round's over, that resets, and you have to gather yourself, take a breath, and just be like, okay, that one's over. Whether or not it worked out in your favor, and you got to move on from that.
Yeah, nerves are okay. It's all right to be a little bit nervous, a little bit shaky, but as soon as you get those jitters out, everything should be confident.
You can use that to your advantage too sometimes, just wake yourself up, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
Slap yourself across the face, just focus.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes, everybody gets nervous, but when it shows up like that, you got to make some adjustments to be a more steady player, because that affects your aim. I don't care where you go.
Yeah.
If you're shaking like that, you're not going to hit your target.
Yeah. One thing as far as playing certain types of tournaments, KWA Fight Night, one of the, the main objectives is grabbing these lights. It's about knowing points, knowing your objectives. At that point, Cam knew that he had to get him out before grabbing two objectives would be the max, and that's
Right.
it. So he had to get him out.
And he got in just in time too, because I think at that point it was 150 to 140.
Yeah. So Cam went into that last round knowing what he had to get done, versus if you don't know points, you don't know objectives, you're already just going into it kind of blind.
So, I mean, situational awareness, right? It's one of those buzzwords that people like to throw around, but in a game like this, like you said, you got to know where your points are. Obviously, attack and defend, and you got to know how to make up the deficits. Or if you're in a lead, how do you keep
Use
the
that to
lead?
advantage,
And keep the lead comfortable. So for the second round between Daniel and Sebastian, I think there's one thing that we noticed that was kind of a theme throughout the match, and that was use of cover and failure to kind of use the cover when retreating. Not only the failure to use the cover, but it's how they did it, right? So like, I think there's one thing that you brought up earlier, and that was the use of cover, and I guess in retreat. Like, so what did you see there?
So, I mean, on a 1 versus 1 scenario, you want to try and limit as much as you can turning your back to that person. When you lose that situational awareness, you don't know where they're at, you don't know if they move barriers, it just puts you in a bad position, as well as exposing yourself.
Right.
You can change that up by, instead of turning your back towards them, square up towards them and just give yourself cover to move back into whatever position you want to, but not exposing your back, directly to the other
fight's
person.
a fight. You don't want to take your eyes off your opponent. As soon as you turn your back, if I'm observing and I got somebody lined up and they turn their back to me, I can either shoot or I can say, okay, he's not going to see where I'm about to move right now. Based on where he's moving in that split second, I'll shift my angle. He might still think I'm there when I might have my gun right after that adjustment. So a lot of times too, that what I noticed is when they got caught, it was always out of cover. They were always out of position, off balance. What were some of the, I guess, like, what's your take on that? And like, what else did you see there? Like the small details of it.
Sebastian didn't do a good job of controlling his body. A lot of times he was leaning out too much, completely open in between barriers. And Daniel, a couple times, even though he has that speed, not keeping his gun up, trying to move from one barrier to another to grab objectives. He did a good job in doing that, but not keeping his gun up and just assuming that no one's going to shoot when he's leapfrogging from one barrier to another, rather than at least, taking a quick peek before doing that, or having your gun up so if you need to fire back, you can at least, give yourself some cover.
Sure. I mean, without your gun, you're just a target anyways, a walking target. You can't respond to any type of offense. Your only defense is to run, so like that's basically like where we can see that these players can improve. It's not just isolated to one player in this match. The use of cover is just something that's where your survival comes from, and your ability to read the field and know how to use cover, whether you're advancing or retreating. All right, so in our third matchup, we had Cloud versus Nate, and look, I get it. It's fun to slide, but sometimes, especially in a 1v1 situation, there's noise to be considered, right? You're gonna give away your position, and the timing of it. If you're not somebody who's super agile and you spend that energy to not only slide, make that noise, make such a sudden movement that someone can easily spot, you have to be able to recover from that quickly in order to like regain the advantage, because you think you're giving yourself an advantage by moving in a very dynamic way and it looks cool and you think you're getting there faster, but the other guy's looking at you the whole time. Even if he doesn't shoot you out as you're going in, you're stuck there anyways. So like, you did that for nothing. You're in the same position that you were before, only you wasted a little bit of gas, but yeah, that's the one little detail that I noticed in that match that I would probably recommend. Like, sometimes if you need a shift, just like maybe just step over with one leg and shift the rest of your weight over without making this big dramatic movement, and it just saves you energy too.
And as far as things that I noticed on a positive side, Cloud kept his gun up multiple times. That got him a couple kills throughout the match. This is such a fundamental and basic thing keeping your gun, especially if you got a pistol. If you got a rifle, okay, it's a little more difficult, especially trying to keep your balance. That goes back to knowing your body limits, goes back to sliding unnecessarily. It's about keeping control of your body, keeping control of your stance, and keeping your gun up can save you a couple times. It can at least maybe possibly get you a trade at the very least. Just simple things that go back to the fundamentals of, controlling
It's
your
like
body.
if we were talking about swords and one guy's got a sword drawn, you're not gonna put your other sword down. It's just, you think about it like that. It's like, you have this weapon, and if you remove your ability to use it, you're as good as dead.
So taking a look at Scotto versus Christian here, the last round, round 8, is pretty much the defining moment of the match, besides the sudden death. In my personal opinion, Scotto lost that last match. He lost it in his lack of field control. In a points-based system like this versus 1, Christian's down, 90 points right there? He has to pick up these objectives. Scotto should go into that knowing, I'm only going to let him get 50 max and that's it, and then I'm going to hold the rest of the field. By shifting his attention over to that right side, he's allowing Christian to scoot up that left side. No matter what he does.
Taking up half of the field, basically.
So you're already giving him the opportunity to make those points up. If you're already stopping him and saying, I'm not going to let him get past the 50, wherever he's at, I'm going to bounce around. So I'm going to kind of mirror him to stop him. So I'm not playing that ring around and allowing him to gain ground on me. I'm only allowing him to get to the 50, and I'm going to mirror him that entire way.
Yeah,
and that's why.
Fundamentally, I agree with you, but I do believe that round was won by Christian, simply because if you look at the situation, if you really slow that part down, from my eyes, I think what Christian may have seen or in that moment heard, because they were like aiming at each other. Scotto's gun malfunctions. I'm just saying, based on us as experienced players, like, we could probably read that and be like, oh, he's reloading. I'm gonna move.
Yeah.
Maybe Christian caught onto that, and it all boils down to timing. And I think everything kind of fell into place for Christian. Not necessarily that he was conscious of everything, conscious of, Scotto missing the shots. He knows he didn't get hit. He might not have been conscious of the reload, but it just so happened that in that time, he made the right move. Scotto's reload was a little bit slow too. I feel like he kind of took himself out of even though he's behind cover, he took himself out of the game a little bit, looked down, reloaded, and then I guess he could have maintained his focus there, but he shifted back. And because Christian was able to get that angle, I feel like Christian won that round.
Now that we finished watching the matches, I think we can pretty much agree that a lot of the mistakes made were just simple, fundamental, basic things that can be easily cleaned up. One thing that I noticed was body control, movement, being aware of yourself and what you can do, your abilities and lack thereof, knowing what you can do yourself.
Yeah, for me it was a lot of like gun handling. I was actually hoping that we could disagree more on things, but like you said, it's when it boils down to the fundamentals, guys like me and you, we're pretty strict about that kind of stuff. And when it's this obvious, like, we gotta point it out. And it's hard to even have such different takes on it because it's very simple things that we learn from day one when we're playing, and you learn from those mistakes. So hopefully the players don't take this advice too hard. This is more meant for you guys to learn from this experience, just based on what we see as experienced players. And don't get me wrong, we make mistakes too, but that's why we get better. We're conscious of those mistakes, and then we don't want to make those mistakes again. And that's what breeds a different caliber of player. The ability to humble yourself, recognize that you're not the best that you can be. You can always be better.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be covering more of the Challenger series as we go on. Take care.